my
It's like your stomach.
Yeah, I'm not even
just
hungry.
had food to stop this shit. I'm not hungry.
Welcome to edition 101 of All Killa,
Rachel.
Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison. Part two.
I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone who donates to the Patreon that manages to keep Rachel fed. If a few more of you could donate, we wouldn't ruin takes with your fucking stomach going. What's going on, mate?
Honestly, I've had my breakfast. I had a little thing off you just before.
That's not food.
Yeah, but you see with me, when I'm doing something, I can't eat. I have to eat afterwards.
Why?
The food's the reward.
Oh my God, like a dog with a bell.
Yeah.
So, welcome back. This episode is, part 2 of John Christie. So, we kind of got up to the Evanses being involved with the Christies or the meeting and moving in. And that's where we're going to pick up because there's a lot to talk about here.
So, we are at 10 Rillington Place.
Do you do your disclaimer for part 2s?
I've just done it.
Have I had a knock on the head? I cannot remember you ever doing them.
I did it in a different intonation because...
Mix it up.
Well, no, because you were having a go. So
do you know what was? I was worrying about you.
Me?
Yeah. You're not eating enough.
Are you gaslighting me?
No, I'm worried that you're not feeding yourself.
Have you seen this? Donate to the Patreon. I put it in a different bank account. Sick of bloody going to the bar and asking for Angela. That's the equivalent of what I'm doing here.
Do you know what? My friend has her... This is quite sad, actually, but kind of amazing. It's going down a couple of generations now that there's a bank account with 500 quid in that's handed down to the girls.
Oh, gosh.
Because she wanted to leave and she couldn't because she didn't have any money.
Oh.
And so when he died, she had a bit of money. She put this... It's got like 500 quid in it.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Crikey. It's quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's...
What, do you ever... I think this asks for Angela, at bars. Like, if you're on a date and it's, you think this man is a loon. You go to the bar and you ask for Angela and they make sure you get home safely and out of the way of any potential trouble. What if you went to the bar and you said, ask for Angela, but they were like, oh,
she's the pot washer?
Yeah, she's on a day off, actually. Or like, well, she's just downstairs and then a woman called Angela comes up and you have to have an awkward conversation with her. Ask for me.
Well, I also think it's that weird thing of like, it has to be... I had a joke about it, about if you see someone... in bootleg jeans and you can smell dupe, ask for Angela at the bar. And I think it's that weird thing where I think it has to be well known for people to be able to use it and to know. But someone was telling me they were on a date once and they were like, can I speak to Angela, please? And the bar person was like, no one called Angela works here.
Oh, fucking
and just didn't even know, even though the posters are up in the toilet. So I think it's one of those weird things that like creeps would probably know about it. And not all bar staff would.
There is a male version of it. I can't remember what the man's name is. Where did I see this?
Angela.
It's something weird like Clive or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they pick more unusual names, but not so unusual? Like,
must do.
It's not lots of Angelas working in bars, maybe. Because it's a little bit older as a name.
It is a bit older, isn't it?
No offence, Angela Barnes. You're laughing because we've just been talking about Angela Barnes. Do you want to say why? Nothing bad about Angela.
No, right. I'm going to have to tell you. She's not going to listen. So I don't think Angela listens to this podcast. And I'm embarrassed by this. And I don't know why, because this is something... You started it. So basically, years ago at the Edinburgh Fringe, I'm talking like 2015, when we first did when we did All Killa, No Filla in that very small little weird room on Cowgate. I was only up there for a few days. Where I was staying was out of town. So on an occasion when I had a big night out, I was staying at not a friend anymore, their flat. And I stayed on the sofa. And the next morning, I was going back to my accommodation. And this was like 8 in the morning. I was like, oh, well, I need to wash my face. But there was nothing I didn't have anything with me apart from my toothbrush and my toothpaste, which I do carry around with me on a regular basis.
Yeah, you do.
I carry it, so don't, start. So Angela, I used your face wash and cream that was in the bathroom.
And cream. Could have gone for one, but did the whole thing.
And it was really nice rose. What's it
rose,
called?
Yeah, I know that posh one, yeah.
Like, I something you see it in Sainsbury's and it's quite expensive in Sainsbury's, so it's an expensive product.
And you absolutely filled your boots.
And I thought it's nice, that. But every time I do see that product in a shop, I do think of you, Angela. So,
I've got to confess, though, this came up in conversation because I was saying my hair's very shiny at the moment
Yeah.
because I've just switched conditioners, and I had to confess it's because when I'm at your house, I absolutely rinse the different conditioners you have to sort of have a little go. I'm one of those people where if I'm using someone else's bathroom, nothing of yours is safe except the toothbrush. But there is nothing I'm
Use
not
that to
having
clean
a go
your
on.
ass, do
Yeah,
you?
I do that. The inside, really get up in there. Really get up in there.
Give those pipes a scrub.
Yeah, get the cotton buds, do my fallopian tubes.
Ooh,
Honestly,
that made me wince.
There's nothing I won't have a go on.
I think that's absolutely fine. You see, I'm very much of the opinion of if you're a friend, a genuine
Me
friend,
casa su casa.
me casa as su casa, you come in, you have what you want. You know, you.
Is that how you feel?
I'm fine with it.
My toothbrush has been up your fanny. So.
Ah.
Wait, I just said my toothbrush has been up your fanny.
What have you been doing when I'm in bed?
You are a heavy sleeper.
I am a very heavy sleeper.
There's me being like, oh, how'd you sleep through with those rollers? That's not what I'm really asking, Rachel. Anyway.
God.
We're at 1948. The
Yes.
Evanses move in. So that's Timothy Evans. He's from Merthyr, I think. He's from South Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his partner as well.
Yeah.
Beryl. Good. Again, the woman who used to cut my dad's hair for £3. Lived
Beryl.
at the end of the road, was called Beryl.
Beryl's sister did not like Christie.
No.
Her sister said that she found him creepy and thought he was weird, and she was very astute.
Yes. He had... Timothy's got quite a sad life. So Merthyr is a brilliant place. My best friend is from and lives in Merthyr. An incredible community, but has had a rough old time of it for many, many years. So very poor community, sort of valleys. And he was abandoned by both of his parents at birth. And they think he had an IQ of around 70, which would sort of be identified as having sort of additional needs or needing some support with learning in today's time. He had fought in the war as well, bringing with it all the problems that it brings. He drank an awful lot. He was only wee as well, 5'5".
Yeah.
Described as a runt. Whereas I think that is just the average height of men in Wales, especially from the valleys. They are not tall.
My dad's small.
My dad's small.
Yeah. My dad's from South Wales. He's small.
My dad's like 5'6", with like hobbits.
Very, very small. He spent a lot. He missed a lot of school as a child. He was quite illiterate, wasn't he? He was illiterate because he missed a lot of school as a child due to a tubercular verruca.
What the fuck is that?
That's a verruca.
That's what you're going to get off that toothbrush.
Oh, that's a verruca that doesn't get better. That's left untreated.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, apparently.
If you just leave it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that you could leave them untreated and it would.
Oh, don't.
So is it like syphilis and that it just gets worse and worse and worse if you just leave it?
It must be, yeah.
Those socks now. We're all thankful for those socks.
Verrucas. I had a verruca once. But it's that thing of that weird plaster that they used to put on it, and then the middle used to come out, didn't it? Do you remember the middle?
Yeah.
They're fucking disgusting.
They're horrible. What are they?
I don't even know what fungal infection is it. I don't know what it is. But they're such a... They hark back to the days of glue ear and verrucas, the title of my autobiography. Lovely stuff. He was able to read very simple documents, like he could read comics, football reports, his wages packet. He liked football and he supported Queen's Park Rangers. As did Christie.
Oh, really? Now, when he was growing up, he told people, I think he was quite embarrassed that he was, an orphan, really. And he would tell people that his dad was an Italian count. And he was actually, related to sort of people from the higher echelons of society.
I always think it's really sad when people do that. Just, like fib to sort of make the background seem...
Yeah, it's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you see, like, if they're, like, maybe kids who are, like, looked after, so, like, in the care system, we would have said, or, or, like, adopting, they've got quite an elaborate narrative about...
Yeah, my dad's a footballer or something, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you see why they do it, like, that's heartbreak, isn't it? Oh, have you ever lied about what your parents did?
No, never. The only lie I've ever told, it was... when I was a kid, was to sort of fit in with some other kids. I mean, none of us where I went to school really were going on big holidays. Like, I've never been abroad with my parents. I've only been to, like, Wales or Cornwall with them. And I remember Derek Middleton went to...
You're right to full name him?
Yeah, there's no problem. We're still friends on Facebook.
Okay, great.
He went to Florida, and I remember him talking about going to Florida, and I think he was talking about where he went, like Universal Studios or whatever it was, and the theme parks, and some of the kids joined in. They clearly hadn't been. And then I was like, yeah. And I just joined in because everyone else was joining in, but he was the only one who'd been. I think we were all sort of... It spread... when that dancing mania in sort of 15th century Germany or whatever it was, people danced themselves to death. It just spread round the classroom, and we'd all been to Florida by the end of the conversation. But, I mean, not really a lie, but no, I've never lied about stuff with you. Have you ever...
No, I've been embarrassed about like what my parents do. Definitely in my primary school, especially because they were all like, because it was private. There was like lots of doctors, or they had businesses or lawyers, and then being like, "What does your dad do?" And be like, he sort of like doesn't pay tax on anything he earns and sort of sells used cars a bit, and then he worked for the council, and then he got laid off, and then he was signing on it.
But I get that. Like he must have. But then you feel bad. You could go back in time, and I'd be annoyed at myself if I'd told fibs about my parents.
Oh, yeah, I feel so bad about... It's that weird thing, isn't it, where, like, I look back on how embarrassed I was sometimes with my parents and the things they said and did. I feel awful that I felt like that, but also, when you're a 14-year-old...
Yeah, it's normal.
Your mum is sprinting down the pavement where all the kids are getting on the school buses going, Kiri! Kiri! And I was like... Don't fuck, and everyone's laughing. It's like this, and she's in. Do you know what rigger boots are? Those orange boots that come up to like your mid calf.
Right, yeah.
She's in those steel toe caps, and like she's got hay in her hair, and she's like, Kiri, and I was like, fucking no, and everyone's laughing at me as I walk back.
It's mad, isn't it? Because now you look back and you do think there's no need to be like that. Also, it's like that deep embarrassment. Like you think, I remember going to a car boot sale with my parents and thinking, oh God, I hope no one from school sees me.
Yeah.
And who gives a fuck? Like
standing outside a charity shop, standing outside Athelostans, anything like that, and you're like, please, no one see me.
It's like you feel like your life's going to end, don't you?
Yeah.
But it's natural, that kind of thing. The thing is now, like I would never say anything about anyone else's family at all. Like, even if, say, in a relationship I've been in with Tim now, if anything happened in his family that I thought, oh, well, they're in the wrong, I don't say anything. I do not get involved. If anyone says anything about I will fucking kill them. I would kill them. It's like my sister. I say all kinds of things about my sister, and I can slag her off until the cows come home. But if anyone else says it, I will fucking murder them.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I remember my ex-boyfriend, my favourite ex-boyfriend, and he didn't mean it nastily. At the time, me and my sister were at loggerheads all the time. And I said something about it, and he went, yeah, well, I went, oh, no, you don't get to join in on this.
Yeah.
You shut your mouth. He was like, all right, okay.
Yeah, something like that happened where I was sort of like, slagging off my brother or something. And my partner didn't, he sort of like even agreed with me. I went, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is for me, not you.
You listen.
Yeah.
Don't you fucking dare
you
say
listen,
anything.
then take it to your grave.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
What were we talking about? Oh, yes. So, yeah, he told people that his dad was an Italian count. Didn't they? They met on a blind date, didn't they?
Well, it says that all I've got here is that she was a telephonist at Grosvenor House on Park Lane. Grosvenor
Love
House
it.
Hotel, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a blind date that they met on.
That was in the days when hotels did have telephones. Little callback to the first episode.
Oh, yes, forgot about that.
Thank you very much.
They still do. Now,
have you stayed in a hotel with a telephone? Text
you can give us a call today. Apparently, also, Timothy had a bad temper and was violent and would be violent with Beryl, which is a problem. I think not uncommon at the time, not to say that it's absolutely fine, but it does also, that violence plays a part in how the case progresses.
Yes, and neighbours would often say that they heard them having terrific rows in
especially when they
flat.
Yeah, when they had their first child. So baby Geraldine is born, and apparently that put even more strain on the relationship, which was already quite fraught. And he used to say that you're a bad mother to her, and they would physically fight each other. So it just sounds like an absolutely horrible relationship for everyone involved.
Yes, he had quite low self-esteem as well. That was something that was pointed out as well. Now, he'd worked in the coal mines in Wales, but he was forced to quit due to his foot. His verruca.
Yes.
So
It's mad, isn't it?
he'd moved to London with his mother initially, but he'd hated it, and then he'd gone back to Wales. But all the kids in Wales were impressed that he'd lived in London. They were all like, "Oh, tell us about London, tell us everything." So of course he used to sort of gild the lily a little bit and, you know, tell these fantastic stories. So she has Geraldine in October. In November 1949, she was pregnant again, and they were worried that they couldn't afford another child. So Timothy said that Christie offered to perform an abortion, which I 100% believe happened.
Yeah.
He definitely did, didn't he?
He would appear in their house as well. There's a story about like Beryl's...
Kramer in Seinfeld.
Yeah, but there's a story about Beryl being sat down having a drink with his sister or something like that, and just all of a sudden with a cup of tea, John Christie's in their house, and they're like, "All right," and he just won't leave. And they were like, "This guy is creepy who just turns up." So then Timothy turns around and is like, "Oh, I've been talking about our problem, and he can take care of it." And it was going to be pills that she took, and a type of douche, and I know it's not a nice word, is it?
No.
That would then like remove the fetus.
I was going to say something really horrible then, but I'm not. I just thought of my toothbrush, that's all.
But John Christie was not trained to perform anything like this, and basically it was just a way of basically trying to get to Beryl.
Abusing women.
Because also he really fancied Beryl as well.
He's just such a creep, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he offers to perform this procedure. Now, is Timothy away at this point?
I think he's gone to Wales with his mum, hasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Beryl goes to see Christie and he gasses her, he rapes her, and he strangles her. Now, then he claims, when Timothy comes back, he says she died during the procedure. And as the procedure is illegal...
Well, what happens is her friend is there with her, right? So Timothy's gone to Wales, and then her friend Joan is there and knocks on the door, because it all goes sort of like quiet in there. And she's like, "I can't get in the door." And she says, "I can feel someone on the other side of the door holding it closed." And then she just hears him go...
with his forehead against it.
She hears Christie go, "It's bad news. It didn't work." And so she's thinking, okay, the abortion didn't work. And then when they go in, so Timothy's called back, they go in, they see her, her mouth is bleeding, her face is badly sort of battered, her nose is bleeding, and she's bleeding from her vagina as well. And he said, "Oh, she died of septic poisoning," which would be like, would take ages and not immediate. And then he was like, "We're all going to get in huge trouble. You're the one who wanted the abortion. You know, you're going to get done for murder." So, you know, bearing in mind, Timothy has an IQ of 70. He just believes everything, and Christie's very bright.
Yeah, and also he's been, you know, as you say, it's illegal. He's like, "Oh, they're going to hang me and him, so I can't say anything."
Yeah. So there's basically a flat in between where the Evanses stay, which is next to... There's sort of like a spare flat in between them. And this is where they go and put her body and for Timothy to come back. So it's Joan who first sees her, and then Timothy comes back. She's in that room. God, it's awful. And then he was like, "Listen, I can get rid of her down the drain," is the phrase that he uses, which is very like acid bath killer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he says, "Oh, you have to sort of give me a hand getting it down." So they carry it down to a guy who lives to Mr. Kitchener's flat, who lives down below that flat. And then what happens is that Timothy says, "I can't look after Geraldine. I don't know how. She's only young. I'm going to take her to my mum's to look after because I can't do it. I haven't, you know, her mum's dead. I just don't know how to take care of this baby as well as this incredible shock and grief." And Christie convinces him to not to do that.
Yes, because he says, "I know a couple that can take her."
Yeah.
In Acton, wasn't it?
Yes.
There's a couple in Acton who will look after Geraldine.
Which is where my mother is from.
Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, my mother's from Acton, yeah.
I didn't know that.
You didn't ask. Where's your mum from? Strange Ways fan.
Did she live in Acton for a long time?
Yeah, she grew up in London, yeah. On a street full of, like... My mum was like... My nana was like a... would take in all the... My mother used to say waifs and strays. She was like, "Oh, there's always some kid on holiday with us." Because nana was like, "They won't get a holiday otherwise." And also my mum talks about... Because she's like a post-war baby.
Oh, right, yeah.
Just... like there'd be like a GI living on the street for a while, and then they would sort of like go back to America and no one would mention it, and there'd be like one black child in a family and be like, and we don't talk about that.
I never knew that about your mum. Interesting. So they say Geraldine's gone to Acton to live with your grandmother.
To live with my nana, yeah.
And
Going on holiday.
he tells him to go to Wales, go back to Wales, he says, you know.
Basically, like, let it all calm down.
Yeah, let it all die down and then come back and you can have Geraldine back. Well, he comes back and nobody's mentioned it. He won't tell him where Geraldine is.
Yeah.
So he's desperate to see his kid. He's like, well, where is she? And he's like, oh, well, she's still with the family in Acton. She's fine. She's having a nice time. She's being well looked after.
It's the farm in Wales.
It is very much the farm in Wales, isn't it? And he's going mad with not just grief. He's stressed out here, Timothy Evans. He's panicked. He's struggling with it all. He hasn't really got the mental capacity, I don't think, to be able to understand everything that's going on.
No, if his story was on a plaque in a wall of a jail in Bodmin, you wouldn't fuck after reading it.
Absolutely not.
It's incredibly sad story.
So he goes to Merthyr Tydfil, and on the 30th of November 1949, he tells the police that he accidentally killed Beryl by making her drink something in a bottle that had been given to abort the baby, and that he'd disposed of her body in a drain.
Yeah.
Now, the police go and search Rillington Place, but they don't find anything. Then he gives a second statement that mentions Christie.
There is a femur bone propping the wall up.
Yes.
The house absolutely stinks as well.
Yeah. And they don't search properly. So there's the thigh bone propping the thing up. The house stinks. Is this there's a time when the police search. I can't remember if it's this time or the time afterwards. And they talk to Christie. In fact, it is this time. They talk to Christie, and they're like, "Oh God, it smells weird." And he blames it on immigrants, and they're cooking. Yes.
He's like, "Oh, it's the foreigners, and that's what you can smell is their cooking. It always smells like this."
So I've definitely told you this story, haven't I? About have I mentioned it on the podcast before?
With the bath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I tell it again? Maybe.
I think you have told it a couple of times.
So my council house, when the council come round to check things, a surveyor came round and we had damp on the wall. And a surveyor came round and he said to my mum, well, you know where the water's coming from. It's Africans having a bath in it because they just... And my mum went, I beg your pardon? And he went, right, okay, well, we'll come round.
Fuck
it's like, of all people, not my mum.
I always find it mad when people are so sure of their own racist views that they can just bang something like that and expect to be agreed with.
Do you know that the...
Also, it's such a mad story. You know what like Africans are like in the bath? No, what are you on about?
Yeah, like what?
It's not an observational bit.
Such a weird thing. Like, and I hate that when you know something's coming like that you're going to have to say, no.
Yeah, what happened the other day? There was something like that and I was like, oh, for fuck, I'm going to have to deal with this, am I? Like, what do you mean by that, sorry? When you're just
excuse
I
me?
don't want to have to fucking do this, but now I have to pull you up on this bullshit.
Awful.
What was it? It was something racist.
So, where are we? Where is it? Where's this body? Is the question. What happens is, another search is done. Now, they've spoken to Christie. They don't notice the thigh bone, but then on the 2nd of December, they do a more thorough search. Now, they find Beryl's body, which is in the wash house, covered with a table covering, because I don't like that other word. And Geraldine was with her.
Yeah, in newspaper.
Yes.
Just behind the door, basically. So I don't think they had given it that thorough thing. So, Christie had even said, like, I will dispose of the body. And I assumed that he would bury, but he just didn't. He just left it.
But bear in mind, Timothy Evans doesn't know that Geraldine's dead because he's not mentioned Geraldine, the baby, in any statement. He still believes that she's alive in Acton. So he's shocked because the police say to him, we found Beryl's body and Geraldine's. And he's like, what? I didn't know that. He's obviously shocked by this. Now, Christie was the only person who had access to that wash house. To get into the wash house, you needed a knife that he had.
Oh, yeah, it was a special knife that, undid something.
Do you know, I hate historical stuff like that. Like cupboards in a house. Oh, we only open that by kicking the one underneath it. Fix it!
Really?
I cannot.
My whole house is that.
I can't live like that. I cannot live like that.
My whole house is like...
I can't wear odd socks and I cannot live like that.
Really?
No. Oh my God,
Mine's
some pride.
You've got to flush the toilet upstairs and then the back door will open.
Honestly, please, I can't live like that.
But you can.
fix it. It will take you
No, because
half an hour.
They're unfixable, otherwise they would have been fixed.
No, I hate it. To open that, you've got to go next door and, like you say, flush their toilet, turn around 3 times, and then it'll be fine. I hate it.
So every time we want to check, so a few choice things in my house. When you flush the toilet in the downstairs toilet, she's got a downstairs toilet, unless you lift the handle all the way up, it keeps flushing.
No, just please get it fixed.
Listen, I've tried, I've had plumbers out. If I want to check the water meter, I have to go to the end of our drive, ask next door if I can go in their garden, and then it's at the bottom of their garden.
No,
That's just a few water-based things off the top of my head. Obviously, if you shower and someone flushes the toilet, it goes freezing, and then boiling, and then freezing, and then back to normal again. That's quite normal.
My parents have a cupboard on their wall in the kitchen that has been at an angle like this for about 15 years. It's like a fun house. Please just fix it. Fix it.
But it's an old house, right?
Not that old. There are no excuses. People with odd socks, people with houses that are... Like, I get it, but also at the same time, just fix it. It'll take you 10 minutes. Just do it. I hate people that are like, I'll do it later. Do it now.
My odd
You're lazy.
Socks bag is one tote bag bursting full.
Throw it in the bin. Don't want to know.
Because they turn up.
The existence of that will bother me now. So I will think about that when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, and I think there's a bag of odd socks in Wales.
I'll tell you what, I'll send you a picture.
Don't. It'll knock me sick. I hate it. When people wear socks of different plies as well, just because they're the same colour. Do you know what I mean?
No.
You know what I mean. Oh, one's a thick sock and one's a thin sock, but they're both black socks, so that's okay. It's not okay.
Well, I spend
You're
about...
upsetting the universe.
about once every 2 weeks, I will pair up a load of stuff and then get... But, like, my partner's fucking addiction to socks is unbelievable. I've got so many pairs of socks.
I just throw Tim's in the bin.
Really?
Yeah. If I see a stray sock...
That's a violation.
No, I see because he won't pair them. If I see a stray sock, in the bin. The outside bin, because it ain't coming back in. It's out, it's gone, and it's out.
Oh, my God. That's a violation.
Don't care. Not interested. There should be... Actually, if anyone does know if there's anything you can do with odd socks, can you donate them anywhere?
Well, I use them as dusters.
Yeah,
Put
that's
your hand
good.
in them.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
A lot of fun as well. Talk to yourself while you're
It's
dusting.
good, that is a
This
top
is
tip.
shit.
That's a top tip, that. I like that. Good.
You're welcome.
Anyway.
I should have sent it in to take a break. I get 20 quid for that.
Yeah, you would have done. Is it 20 quid? That's all right. Not a bad price, is it? Anyway.
Cost of living, it's probably about 3 quid now.
Where are we up to? So.
Poor old Timothy.
Poor old Timothy. The police didn't find Ruth or Muriel, who were buried nearby, despite the thigh bone and also despite the fact that they were in shallow graves. Muriel's skull had been dug up by Christie's dog. There you go. And
I thought it was a fox.
He disposed of it in a bombed building nearby.
Yeah.
Children found it. Some kids found it and handed it into the police, but it was ignored.
What? Oh, because they assumed it was someone in the...
Maybe they were like,
oh, God.
Maybe it was like, oh, that's from a bombing or whatever. Now, it's so grim, so grim. So Christie was questioned and he said, well, this was all Evans. It was all him. They were always arguing and that's what's happened. And Evans made a false confession. I think he was probably coerced into, wasn't it?
Almost definitely. It was a confession that was signed, bearing in mind he was barely literate, using quite verbose, quite floral language, words that he would never use, words that he didn't understand.
Like when you hear a comedian telling a joke and you go, they didn't write that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Sometimes I'm like, that's got so-and-so written all over it.
In special on YouTube,
yeah.
There's a bit that's like, well, that
Right.
It sounds exactly like
Yeah.
it's the only good bit. Oh, it's so obvious as well. So yes, he basically gives this false coerced. We would now recognise as a coerced confession, and he is then put on trial. Now, at the time, the law is you can only charge people for one murder at a time, and they basically thought that there was more evidence for Beryl.
The trial, Timothy Evans, begins on the 11th of January 1950.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, who's the key witness for the prosecution?
Christie.
Oh, I hate him. I can't stand this guy. So Timothy Evans has recanted his confession, and he's like, I didn't do this, but it doesn't matter. So he says to the prosecution that Evans was guilty. Christie was instrumental in Evans being found guilty just 2 days later. Evans was hanged on
They only took like 40 minutes to deliberate over the...
So sad.
What's it called, the verdict?
Evans was hanged on March the 9th, 1950. and he's buried in a graveyard in Leighton in London,
Is he?
which I was in just a few days ago.
In the graveyard or in Leighton?
The graveyard.
Really?
Yeah, I went on Saturday morning, had a mooch round.
Did you see him?
Didn't see him, couldn't find him, no.
Did you have a look?
I think he's in there as well, the Jack the Ripper victim. And Annie...
Oh, Chapman.
I think it's Annie Chapman. I'm sorry, I can't remember which lady it is. Which victim it is. She's buried in there. I couldn't find Timothy Evans. I was in another graveyard.
That's what you did on a Saturday morning?
Yeah, I popped out, yeah.
Should just go and see who you could find.
Well, I like having a look round. I like to see what's happening in the old graveyard. Bit of taphophilia, I love it.
Did you see Annie Chapman's grave?
Yeah, by accident.
It's not got anything about Jack the Ripper on it?
No. It's just a tiny little grave. And then there's Chingford Cemetery near me as well, where the Krays are. I spotted them the other week.
Is it a big old, like, showy grave?
Not that big.
Oh, really?
No, not that big.
I thought it'd be some big marble angels.
No, it's just them, and there's pictures on them.
Oh, yeah, I get you.
Yeah. I mean, not for me, I find that a bit tacky. But,
Rest in peace.
Each to their own. So...
It's a really unfair trial of someone who didn't know what they were doing, because they do, it's so often when you get false confessions, it's someone who doesn't quite understand the magnitude, and they're like, if you just say this, then you can go home, and they think, well, that's it. I'll just tell them I did, and then, it'll be the end of it, because they can't always see the consequence of the action.
However, there are a lot of people now that say, well, the evidence is that Timothy Evans did do it.
I don't think so. I don't think he... Yeah. I don't
think he did either.
Deeply unfair.
Poor guy. Poor all of them, really. Entire family there. Gone.
Yeah. Wiped out. It does lead to a change in the law. When eventually things come out with Christie, which we'll talk about in a second now, Timothy Evans is one of the cases that leads to the overturning of the death penalty, because he was one of the sort of very high-profile... errors, and it was high profile because there was the death of a baby involved. So Geraldine, it's very emotive when a child is murdered. So the fact that Geraldine was one of the victims, there was a lot of coverage in the press, and and then justice is done, and then actually we've got the wrong person, and the other person killed far more.
After the trial, Christie is sacked from his job at the Post Office Savings Bank, though, because his previous crimes became known.
Well, this is it. It's like he's like, yeah, I'll be the witness. And then they have to go through, like, all right, well, you've got a massive criminal record.
Yeah.
The Post Office find out. But it hits him hard. He loses loads of weight. He loses, like, nearly 30 pounds of weight. So he's, like, having a rough old time of it.
He's unemployed for a few months. Then he gets a clerical job with the British Road Transport Services. He and Ethel weren't happy with more new tenants coming to Rillington Place because, why is that? They're from the West Indies. They didn't didn't want black people living with them. Ethel accused a tenant of assault.
Oh my God.
And Christie spoke to an organisation called the Poor Man's Legal Centre because he wanted sole use of the back garden.
Well, this is it. This is another thing that, like, not only are they racist, he's also like, I can't come and go as I please, because he used to just make himself a brew and he'd be out all night pissing about in the garden, i.e. doing bad stuff. And now these people, rightly so, wanted use of the garden, and that's why he tried to get them evicted.
There's so many...
lied about them.
There's so many shared gardens in London still, though. Mine's... you have to go through next door's garden to get to...
Oh, yeah, yours is like a bit at the end, right?
Hello, what's through? And then I can't even cut the grass. I don't even go in it, to be honest. I'm not home long enough. But the neighbours on the left side to us, there's a chap who lives in the flat above, and there's kids below, and they share their garden. And he's such a nice guy. The kids, he must be in his 60s. And the kid was like, I've changed his name, James, come and play on the trampoline. And the other day I just heard him, he went, I can't, I'm an old man. But it's so sweet, like, but it's quite, I think a shared garden can be quite a nice thing, but in some way, if you're not antisocial like me, it's a lovely thing. But yeah, I mean, they had every right to be going in the garden.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that, like, so he just starts making too much of a fuss and bringing too much attention to himself. Yeah. So he starts to, basically the landlord wants to evict him because Christie's becoming a pain in the arse.
Yes. And where are we up to? So, 6th of December 1952, he suddenly resigns from his job. Now, what he's been doing is bringing women to the house as well. And Ethel is there when he starts inviting them back now. Like, he invites some women back on bonfire night, like, oh, do you want to come and watch see a bonfire in my back garden and that kind of stuff. It's a very juvenile thing to say to somebody, isn't it? So he's bringing women back when Ethel's there, and Ethel won't leave him alone with these women because she's like, well, I know what he's got planned. He's going to be having sex with them. I wonder if she knew. Do you think she knew?
Yeah. What, about the murders?
Yeah.
No.
I think she knew he was having, relations with other women.
Yeah, definitely.
So he decides, he's like, well, Ethel's actually in my way now. I want her to go back and see her family. She won't piss off. She's constantly on me back. I'm going to have to get rid of her. So what he does is he kills her. He murders Ethel in bed on December the 14th.
Yeah.
On December the 16th, he sold a wedding ring. He also sold a watch and another ring that she had. He wrote letters to a sister in Sheffield saying that she had rheumatism and that was stopping her writing. On the 8th of January, he sells all the furniture and he's keeping a few items for himself, which was just a mattress. He sells Ethel's clothes as well. On February the 2nd, he forged her signature and cleared her bank account, and he was no longer answering letters that came back from her relatives. So, there's 3 more women that he murders in quite close succession.
I think Ethel was the thing that was...
Ethel was under the floorboards at this point. Do you remember that? He used Jay's fluid, a chemical, to try and cover the smell.
Yeah, but people would always comment on the smell, and the neighbours were complaining. And I think Ethel was the thing that was maybe like not holding him back, but, like keeping him in line. And now there was no Ethel. There was no reason for him to not completely follow whatever urge he had.
Kathleen Maloney, who was from Southampton, he took explicit photos of her and he forced her to inhale the gas in the kitchen and he killed her, and then she was put in the kitchen alcove in the house.
Just want to say that for most of these women, although he apparently didn't do it with Ethel, but he'd kill them and then he would rape them.
Yes.
Whereas apparently that wasn't the case with Ethel. He just killed her.
He just killed her because she was in the way.
Yeah.
There was Rita Nelson, who was from Belfast. She'd been in London visiting her sister and she was 6 months pregnant. Now, Rita, she was drunk when she went back to the flat, to the house with him. But he said, oh, she followed me home, which is exactly the kind
we've
of
all
thing
been followed home by a drunk 6 months pregnant woman, haven't we?
Now, he strangled her with a rope, and again, she was placed in the alcove. Again, she was 6 months pregnant. This is brutal. She was reported missing in January by her landlady as well. And there was another lady, Hectorina McClellan. Now, he kept up a bit of a pretense about her because he knew her and her boyfriend. And he said they'd been staying with Christie, apparently. He said, they were staying with me while they were looking for somewhere else to live. She was 26 years old. She was Scottish. And he was saying he was helping her to find a flat. And he killed her and put her in the alcove. Her boyfriend was looking for her. He said, I know she's been staying here. And he's like, she's just gone off. I don't know where she's gone. He then sublets the flat. All of this and he's subletting. Unbelievable. He sublets the flat to a Mr. and Mrs. Riley. Now, this is where Christie does a runner because he thinks, there's too many bodies in this house. People are going to find out. I've got to get out of here. He borrows a suitcase, which he clearly had no intention of giving back. So another black mark against his name from me. And the landlord turns up and he goes, where's Christie? And they're like, this is our flat. We're renting. He's like, no, I'm the landlord. Where is it? And it's a chap called Beresford Brown who's living in the next flat, I think. Mm-hmm. He is putting some shelves up. And as he's putting the shelves up, he bangs the wall and it goes through the wall. So he pulls away some wallpaper and then he sees a body. So he phones the police.
So it was basically a cupboard in the kitchen where he had put the bodies and he'd shut the door and then wallpapered over it so like there was nothing there. But obviously you can still smell decomposing bodies. So the flat stung. But this poor guy wasn't he putting up a shelf for a radio or something like that?
Yeah,
something very
that was
innocent.
it. Yeah, he's put up a shelf for a radio.
And he was like, this seems like it's, I could get a nail through this. Yeah, and then the body discovered, which must have been absolutely horrific. But because of the conditions of the cupboard, in that it was very dry, but it was really cold, they were mummified. So they were incredibly well preserved, but it must have been absolutely terrifying for anyone to see.
Horrible. Christie is just wandering round at this point. He's got the money from emptying Ethel's account. He's got his borrowed suitcase, and he's booked into a hotel. I think in.
Well, he goes to brothels, he goes to hotels. He's just very transient around London, and he also starts writing to the papers, going, "Oh, I'm gonna hand myself in," because obviously they put out a warrant, is it? He's
on the front page of every paper at one point.
And he starts writing to the papers and going, "Oh, I want to hand myself in, actually. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to confront my crimes." And then he goes to meet the journalist and he says, "I was going to meet the journalist and hand myself in, but on the way I saw 2 police, like bobbies on the beat, and I got scared." Bullshit!
Yeah. He said that he saw the headlines about corpses being found in the house, but he didn't connect that with himself. He ran out of money. He slept on benches and in cinemas. And on the 31st of March, he's spotted in Putney by a police officer. Now, the police officer, this bit is so funny, by the way. The police officer approaches him and he gives him a false name. Now, he says to him, "Can you take your hat off, please, sir?" And as he took his hat off, it revealed his massive, high, bald forehead. And he knew at that point that it was him. And I'm not making this up. This is genuinely true.
Yeah, he's like,
he was identified by his big forehead. And he was arrested. And in his possession, he had an ID card, a ration book, a union card, an ambulance badge, old paper clippings about Timothy Evans.
Horrible.
Weird. He goes to Putney police station and he gives a statement.
Not the weirdest thing, because they also find, when they're searching his house and possessions, they find a tobacco tin with 5 different curls of pubic hair in them. Because they were thinking, oh, it's weird that he hasn't got trophies, but like he still had the bodies. So there's your trophy. He had the clippings in the case where he didn't have the bodies of Timothy, because he is responsible for Timothy's death. He just is. It's another one of his victims. So they found this thing, these like curls of pubes in a tobacco tin. And they said,
it's making me feel fucking ill.
And they were like, "What's this?" And he was like, "Oh, that's Ethel's. I've kept." And they tested it, and it's like, it's not hers.
Oh my
god! They don't know who it was. It may well have been other victims that he didn't have the bodies for, that he kept. So he goes to he's held in Brixton prison, where he's referred to that he's hated. They say he's snivelling. And they say he's nauseating, his presence. Like, the police hate him straight away, and anyone who interacts with him, they're like, "Oh, he's a little twat." So, yeah, he said that these, the women that were found in the kitchen, he said that these are fights that got out of hand, and I panicked and I didn't know what to do. And then they tested the bodies and were like, "But they've been poisoned with gas." And he's like, "Now I remember. It is a different story."
Yeah.
So he was doing this sort of flitting around between sort of pretending that he was... pretending that it was just a sort of crime of passion, and then going, actually it was premeditated. And then he sort of revelled in the idea that he was actually a serial killer, and compared himself when he was in prison to inmates. He said, I'm like John George Haig. So he was really sort of like enamoured with the idea of him being a big kind of scary serial killer.
He wasn't as well dressed as John George Haig.
No,
and not that I want to stick up for anyone, but you know.
Apparently, when the police were interviewing him, he would pretend that he couldn't talk, and he would whisper the answers to any questions he didn't like. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, hang on, is that the Elizabeth Tower? Yeah. Fucking hell.
He also said that he wanted to kill more than he did when he was talking with impunity to prisoners. He said, "Oh, I wanted to kill 12."
Was that boring you? Bored of murder?
Bored of murderous men. No, he said he basically had this idea in his head that he wanted a dozen, and that he would, like, that was what he wanted to get to. I think that's his way of saying that he had killed 12 people.
I think you might be right.
Now, he admitted to all of the murders eventually, except for Geraldine Evans. And they think that was for 2 reasons, and they're all power related. One is that because it's so emotive, having killed a baby...
Yes.
That he didn't want to, he thought he could never like bounce back from that or wriggle his way out of that, or it would mean that he was more in danger in prison for being a child murderer. But also because it meant that Timothy's name wasn't cleared. And so it was like an act of power over Timothy Evans as well, that like he was going to take the fall for that crime, something he was obviously proud of.
I think it's all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely all of that.
He's carrying the clippings around. It's something that's important to him. Now, he said that Beryl and Ethel had been mercy killings because they'd had sort of like, you know, that Beryl was like a botched abortion, and that was to put her out of her misery. And I don't know why he said that Ethel was a mercilessly killing. The guitar, maybe. Too much guitar. Get her put down.
It is annoying.
Now, he then confesses to a chaplain in prison that he didn't kill Beryl, but he thought if he said he was guilty, that was a better chance than trying to get away with the plea of insanity.
What?
Yeah, none of it makes sense. Now, he goes to the Old Bailey. He's tried there on June 22nd, 1953, in the same court that Timothy Evans was found guilty and sentenced to death. Now, he goes on trial for Ethel's murder. That's the one that they think they can get him on the most. And, he says not guilty by virtue of insanity is what he goes for. And he is found guilty. The defence was... so Derek Curtis Bennett was his defence, and he referred to him as a maniac and a madman.
Fair play.
Yeah, he just sort of got stuck in. But that's the only way he's going to do it, is like, my client is absolutely insane. He's a maniac. No, they have a doctor test that, and the doctor's like, nah, he's not mad. He does know right from wrong, so he's perfectly culpable of these things that he, let's not forget, planned. And so two doctors diagnosed him as being sane enough to stand trial. Their theory being that, so he avoided detection, he hid when he was suspected, there's premeditation, he had planned out certain things, all of this suggests that he knows wrong from right, he knows that he has to hide something, he's not just acting on pure sort of instinct based on, insanity, in their words. So the trial lasts 4 days. It takes them 80 minutes for the jury to decide that he's guilty. He's not...
How long?
80 minutes.
Brilliant. I think that's great.
Yeah, but do you know what? When I see a film's 80 minutes, I'm like, perfect. Absolutely perfect. No film needs to be longer than 90 minutes.
Thank you.
It's too much, isn't it?
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So he's found guilty. I'm going to yawn. Hold on.
She's ever so bored of justice.
I'm not. It's so fucking hot in here. It feels like an old people's home.
All right, Beyonce.
What? What's that meant to mean? Because it's a hot room.
Just diva,
Oh, I'm a diva. Right. So he's found guilty and given no recourse to appeal, and he was hung. Do you say hanged? He was hanged.
Except when you say he was hung, it sounds like you're talking about...
Oh, of course. Is that why it's that?
And I mean, he was... Can't do it, Christie. No Dick Reggie, so...
But the autopsy
Reggie, no
says he was okay. It's important to get that. He was hanged in Pentonville on July the 15th, 1953. But yeah, Timothy wasn't exonerated until a while afterwards. And... it's absolutely awful. In fact, when all the evidence came out that he had killed Beryl and Geraldine, or was very likely to have killed Beryl and Geraldine, the police really pushed back and were like, no, we've got our man for that, So it was a bit of a cover-up for a while. Yeah. And it's just that really sad thing that you see so often where you have someone who's marginalised, and vulnerable, who's exploited, and then when it's found out that they're innocent, that there's an effort to cover up the fact that there was a stitch-up job. So it's really sad, but it was a big step forward in leading to the death penalty being overturned.
Do you want to hear an interesting little fact?
No. You can catch everything. Yeah, go on.
So the two Ronnies,
okay,
did a sketch.
Wait, okay, right.
So the Phantom Raspberry Blower of Old London Town?
Yes.
One of the sketches they did was actually filmed at 10 Rillington Place before the building was demolished, and when they go down a drain, that was the very drain that was searched for bodies.
Are you serious?
Serious.
But he didn't put any bodies down the drain. There was lots of chats about him putting bodies down the drain, and he never did. Do you think it was just that he was quite infatuated with John George Haigh? And, pouring,
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's just that the drain was searched, wasn't it? It was searched for bodies.
But he says, at different points, Christie says...
I never put them down the drain.
I'll put them down the drain. He said
he never did.
Yeah, and he didn't. So I think it's a weird... I think he was way more into John George Haigh than he let on, yeah.
But there you go. That was filmed at Rillington Place.
What a lovely end. No victims.
And you can see it online. The sketch. If you Google that, there's a tweet that links you to it.
So it's in the flat?
It's just outside the house, on the street, before it was demolished.
Yikes.
Yeah. And it is demolished now. It's gone. It's, what is it?
Rushton Place.
Yes.
So there you go. If you want to go and, I imagine there's some walking tour that goes there.
Oh, I imagine so, yeah.
I swear to God, when I see people giving Jack the Ripper tours, I was staying in Whitechapel the other day, and for our anniversary, and I watched someone giving a Ripper tour, and it's just like an out of work actor in a top hat with fingerless gloves.
I went on one
in front of now like a health centre.
Well, I went on one, but it wasn't one of the dressed up top hat and tails ones. I went with Harry Griffin. You've met him, Joe Lycett's tour manager.
Oh yeah.
Me and Harry's the sweetest boy, isn't he? He's so funny, so much fun. Me and him went, and he can't take anything seriously. So every time that I was listening to information, he'd had something to say, and I'm just like, I can't do this. But the guy that did ours was quite normal.
Really?
He wasn't theatrical, no.
Well, that's one of the worst things, one of the many bad things about the Edinburgh Fringe is having to navigate your way past Harry Potter tours on the street. Is that or the silent disco?
Look, I'm all for people having fun and each to their own, but that silent disco, I won't say what I think needs happening, but yeah. A very funny person I know is a journalist, and I won't often say those things together. I saw her in the street the other day, and she said, I think we were like, my partner and I waiting for a taxi, and this fucking silent disco's coming towards us, and we turned around and saw her, and she started laughing at our faces. And she said, you know how the Kings thinks that everywhere smells of freshly covered paint? Yeah.
And the guy with the silent disco thinks that everyone walks in and goes, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, that's just how everyone's greeted in every room that they go in.
That's just life.
Yeah.
So that's Christie.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for
Thank
watching. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks so much to everyone who gives to our Patreon. Very kind of you.
Yeah.
And thanks to everyone who's bought tickets to a live show. Not sure when this goes out. I imagine probably, maybe not before. Thanks for coming to Edinburgh, or come to Edinburgh and Halloween as well.
My tour's on sale, rachelfairburn.com. I've got a website now. Love saying that, rachelfairburn.com.
I've got nothing to sell yet, but come November, there's going to be an announcement.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Will you tell me when it is when we're off?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you can read between the lines. Adore ya.
I don't know, you might have opened a shop.
Oh, well, I've got something quite big
You've always got
coming up.
something going on.
Yeah, I have. I'm starting a drama school.
Are you?
Yeah.
Can I come?
No.
That's great.
First lesson is mic technique.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, comedy school is starting in North Wales in a couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Oh, is that what you've been teasing about?
That's what I've been teasing.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Adult classes and children's
Is that for
classes.
me? You're telling me that I need to go?
So if you need to learn how to do comedy, just saying.
Yes,
I'll
be
residential.
There, oh, is it residential?
No, it's not. No, it's every Tuesday nights.
Sounds great, that.
Yeah, it will be good.
That's the end.
Thanks very much for listening, watching. Oh my God, this room's so hot.